Hello, my fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski, and this is Two Guys on Politics. And the other guy is my favorite columnist, my favorite reporter, and my good friend, Ray Hanania.
And I'm Ray Hanania, and that, of course, is former Congressman Bill Lipinski. He's in the Chicago City Council for, I don't know, 24 years or more,
No,
uh,
no. I was in the city council for 8 years,
8 years, but in as Democratic Committeeman, right? How many years?
30 years.
30 years, yes. So nobody knows Chicago politics better than you, in my opinion. So Bill and I are here at Two Guys on Politics, January 24, 2025, Season 4, Episode 2. And today we're going to be talking about President Trump's first week in office, his flurry of referendums. I can't even keep count. There have been so many of them. There were 46 the first day, and I think there have been another 200 more since. What maybe we can talk about some of those. And then also, what I think, and I think maybe Bill thinks also is important, is Trump's executive order, which orders the release of all the remaining documents in the JFK assassination, the RFK assassination, and the assassination of Martin Luther King. So, Bill, let's talk first about Trump's first week in office. Has it been crazy? I mean, has it been less than what you expected, more than what you expected? How has he acted as since
I
he's
think it's
returned to
been,
the presidency?
I think it's been typical uh, Donald Trump, confusing, chaotic, and for his purpose, very effective. It solidifies his support amongst his base people. It throws many people off on exactly what he is doing, so they cannot really follow up that quickly on it. And although when he did talk about taking back the Panama Canal, which I agree with, and he did talk about making arrangements to take over Greenland, which I agree with. Both of those I think are beneficial to the American people. Uh, all the haters, all the never Trumpers
Right.
came out violently against him. If they had only spent a little time to read about what is really going on in Greenland, in the surrounding area, and you know, in the what's the
The
second thing I was talking about?
the
Oh,
Greenland and the Panama Canal.
Panama Canal. And the Panama Canal, they would realize that both of those things have to be done in order to help America and to help the free world. Believe me, I'm not going to go into details on it, but if you want to really get an earful about it, you can read my column that'll be out next week pertaining to the Greenland. Then the following week, we'll have one on the Panama Canal. And I think they're both good things. Okay. Now, by the same token, he said he was going to cut out, I think it's called birthright citizenship.
Right. That's
Okay.
that. That's specifically when illegal aliens come into the country and have a child, as opposed to somebody who might be a citizen overseas, and working over there, and then comes here, has a child, and then goes back overseas.
You know what you would have to do to get rid of that?
Well, it's not going to be easy to unwind the injustices and the uh, cutting of corners on our Constitution so that we could satisfy political movements and, people. It's all part of this bigger not really immigration, it's a legal alien issue we have because you're not an immigrant if you sneak into the country. You're an illegal alien. You're an immigrant if you apply and go through the process and then get approved or maybe not approved. I don't know, but
He's not
uh,
talking about that, Ray. He's talking about people whose parents or mother come across the border. The child is born in this country. The
right,
child is automatically an American citizen.
right. But a lot of them are
From the founding, since the founding of our country, if you're flying in an airplane and your mother gives birth to you, you're an American citizen. And that's been in the Constitution since the very beginning of the Republic.
See,
How
I
do you
don't think I think that should be changed. I honestly, I think it should be changed. I think that that there should at least should be a discretion about it in this term. There are people who are not citizens who cross the border specifically to have their baby here so
That's
they
true.
could become citizens and then become the anchor child to bring them to the United States. It's a strategy, a movement to achieve citizenship that I think should be stopped. I'm not against somebody who legitimately is in this country. For example, they have a visa, they have approval, they've been vetted, and they may not be a citizen, but maybe they're here a year, whatever. They have a baby. Yeah, okay, then make that child an American because they were born here and the parents were here legally. But I don't think it should be given to, unfortunately, and it sounds cruel, but we can't allow anybody to just come in here and say, well, I'm going to cross the street, have a baby there, and they're going to be an American and get all the benefits of America without ever loving America, without even caring about America. There's something wrong with it.
Well, we've been doing it since 1780.
We should stop.
Okay, well,
No, I'm just saying that there are a lot
oh,
of people who believe, that it needs to be adjusted.
oh, I agree. I agree. There's a lot of people that believe that. I would like to know the numbers of people, who come in here to deliberately have their child be an American citizen and then go back. Now, you brought up a point about it. He's an anchor child.
Right.
I mean, that child gives his parents a better opportunity to get to America as
Sure.
an American citizen than many others.
Yeah,
So,
I see. My feeling is if you enter this country illegally and have a baby here, that baby should not become an American citizen. If you enter this country legally and have a baby here, yeah, then that baby should be an American citizen because you did it through the legal process. But there's this whole movement of people that want to push aside the legality and the fund. They use the Constitution to defend this issue, but they brush aside the Constitution for the very premise as to why it happened. So it's just a hypocrisy, I think, that we can't just play this game where we make exceptions for political beliefs that we happen to embrace, which is one of the big problems we have in this country today.
that's the great thing about America. We can disagree and
Yeah.
still be friends. Now
Yes.
let's move on to the fact that
Were you born in this country or are you like the Obamas? No.
no, I was born in Warsaw, Poland.
Were you? No, seriously, were you? Because I was about to call and get an investigation going to challenge your
It's pretty
citizenship.
good since my mother was Irish, but that's all right. I know how you Arabs are. You jump to conclusions.
Hey, my mother's from Bethlehem. Jesus is my cousin. Okay, even if I were born there, I'd still have a closer tie to America. But yeah, there's
Wait a second, I'm trying to. What about where you pardoned all these people who attacked
true.
the? What do you think about that?
Well, see, I don't think they all should have been pardoned. However, what I'm most upset about is what I see as the hypocrisy of how they dissect Trump's pardons, the minutia of every little thing, and yet they gave a blanket pass to Biden, who pardoned terrible people, drug users, drug dealers, murderers. He commuted the sentences of 37 murderers who were on death row, who should have, in my opinion, I mean, I support the death penalty for people who murder people, but he left 3 on there because they were very controversial. He didn't want to touch those because he knew the politics was bad. But Biden did all that, and the media just brushed it aside. Yeah, it's okay,
But,
whatever. And his son and all these other people.
but
Uh,
Trump pardoned people who dragged police officers down 3 flights of marble steps.
but they served their time, didn't they? I mean, it wasn't at that time served. Didn't they
Should they
say,
have been pardoned?
didn't they? I think it was pardon to time served. So those people that really were engaged in this violence against police, the majority that he released, that as I understand it, had served time, and he released them from serving time.
When did you become a Trumper?
No, to me though, it's the hypocrisy. I would love to dig into some of those pardons that Trump made and criticize them, but it's unfair to criticize that and not criticize what Biden did. To me, that's the bigger problem we have. In other words, it's okay to release a criminal if it was done by Biden. But it's not okay to release a criminal, and we'll come up with reasons why. Oh, the victim was a police officer or whatever, because it was by Trump. To me, that's the bigger issue.
Well, to me, the bigger issue is neither one of these people, Biden or Trump, should have ever pardoned all the people that they pardoned. I
Right.
think it's a terrible thing to do. I
Yes.
think it hurts the very foundation of our republic by doing something like this. And when Biden did that, he gave Trump the opportunity
Yes, he
to
did.
do all the pardoning that he did. Now, I'm not saying Trump was worse than Biden. I really don't. Trump did a lot more, but since Biden did so much of his family, I just,
Well,
I
actually, Biden pardoned and commuted more people than Trump did. But the real problem is the media doesn't dig down to provide the information to you and me, the members of the public, so we can come to a good conclusion and say, yeah, that pardon was terrible. He should have never done it. It's a blanket assault against Trump. They don't give us the facts. When Biden did his pardon, they didn't give us all the details. They gave us a blur and said, "Oh yeah, it's just, blah blah blah. It's okay. Let's move on to the guy we hate, Trump." To me, that's the real problem. We're not allowed to get to the point where we can criticize Trump because we don't have all the correct facts. The media
Wait,
won't give them to us.
but I ask you a question.
Yes.
Who do you dislike the most? Bibi Netanyahu or the news media in America?
That's a tough one. I think Bibi Netanyahu is the Israeli version of Hamas. And I think between the two of those, Hamas is a terrorist group, and Netanyahu is a terrorist group. And if they weren't in charge, we would have the two of them. If they were out, we would have peace in the Middle East. And we taxpayers wouldn't be spending hundreds of billions of dollars to fund this conflict that continues to go on rather than giving the money to our veterans who need it, our homeless, our seniors, and all the other people. So, yeah, that's a tough one for me.
I thought it would be a very tough one for you. I'm thinking, Ray, you want to run for office. A lot of good, clear-cut ideas.
I don't think so.
Did you ever run for office?
I did once when I left the Sun Times. I ran for state representative against Larry Wendland, and the reason I did it was because of a professor, Milton Rakove, who you knew.
Yeah, I know.
He was a
Yeah.
great author, a political analyst. He wrote several books. We don't want nobody sent, stuff like that. And what I learned from he was my professor. He kind of adopted me in college in my junior and senior year and directed my education. He was my direct educational advisor. And what Rakove did was he said that he ran for office so he could better understand Chicago politics. And he said he was so glad that he got out of it. So when I got out of the Sun Times as a political reporter, I said, you know what? I'm going to run for state rep against Larry Wendland, who was a Republican and in a predominantly Republican district. I had the backing of Mike Madigan at the time. He endorsed me. It was a reluctant endorsement because Mike and I weren't getting along because of the Jane Burns stuff back then. But I thought, yeah, you need to run for office to really understand it because nobody understands what you went through, Bill, as a politician. They read about it, but what you and your family have to go through, that you live in a fishbowl where you're attacked for everything. The public doesn't understand that. So when you've been through it, it helps you deal with it, I think, a little bit better. And I think it made me a better political consultant and writer.
An interesting thing is that when I first got elected alderman, both the Sun Times and the Chicago Tribune said I came from too corrupt a political organization to be a good alderman.
Hey.
4 years later, when no one ran against me, both of them editorialized, there is not a better alderman representing people in the city of Chicago than Alderman Bill Lipinski. So that's how things changed. And as the years went on, I became more and more of a statesman, not a politician.
Right.
And I decided to retire. And I thought it'd be a nice idea if I could get my son, who had 3 different degrees from universities like Duke, Northwestern, and Stanford.
He was smart.
To take my place.
Well,
and I got him to take my place. And within one day, I went from being a statesman to once again, I was a hack politician, just like I was back in 75.
I was the only columnist that defended your son.
Yes, I remember.
Because I believed in the Lipinski legacy. I think you were probably one of the fairest. And people will say, well, that's because you do a podcast with Bill and you guys are friends. Yeah, the reason I'm a friend with Bill is because he's a good politician. The reason I do a podcast with Bill is because he's a good person. So, you don't do podcasts with people that are horrible people. So I learned to respect you, and a lot of journalists respected you because you didn't lie to us. You were always honest. And it's true, when you retired and your son took over, they went after your son viciously. It was just horrible. And I remember writing a column attacking the people that were attacking him because some of them were just personally vicious. It was just horrible. It was just not journalism.
No, many of them didn't like me either, so they decided they would take it out on
a few of them who didn't know you, the new generation of journalists who think they know everything because they watched it on TV and they know how to put a noun, an adjective, and a verb together to make a sentence.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Hey, I'm just defending you. I would rather spend another 20 minutes defending you. But you're right. Let's go to any other executive orders that you think stand out. The birthright one you mentioned. I know that the Muslims are worried about the so-called Muslim ban, but the irony. Just a quick note on that. Right. The original Muslim ban was imposed by Barack Obama. He's the one who banned travel from 7 Muslim majority countries in 2015. And when Trump came to office, he embraced that very same restriction against those 7 Muslim majority countries and issued a travel ban. But they didn't attack Obama. They only attacked Trump when he did that, and they called it a Muslim ban. They didn't call it a Muslim ban when Obama did it, but it was the exact same thing that Obama did 2 years earlier that nobody questioned.
You think there was a bias in favor of Barack Obama by the news media?
It's a bias in politics, the left versus the right, and it doesn't matter who's in office there. The left and the right there's extremists on both sides. We both know that. I think more so on the left than on the right. But there's in the center, I think their proper position in the center is to look at both of them and assess them properly. And hey, why not point out that Obama was the one who singled out those 7 countries, not Trump? But nobody wants to do that.
No, and Obama, I believe, actually deported more people than Trump did.
Yes, he did. He did, and assassinated an American citizen who, because they believed that he was involved in terrorism, and then killed that citizen's son overseas. And I'd have to look up his name, but it was these were things that were given a pass that if a Republican had done, would have been major front page stories for weeks and weeks, but were made a brief story in the New York Times and other papers and then moved on. So it's this hypocrisy again, in my view, that's the real problem, not the politics. But
I agree.
Any other, I think the other big one is obviously the JFK, the executive order on all the documents. Yeah. What do you think of all that?
Subjects.
Yes. What do you think of all that? Was it
I'm
a good move?
Happy. I think it's a good move. I think that the American people have a right to know everything about that assassination, as well as the assassination of Bobby Kennedy. And I don't know, Martin Luther King, maybe Martin Luther King was not a public official. John Kennedy was president. Robert Kennedy was a U.S. senator. There may be things in the Martin Luther King's background that his family might not want revealed. If I was handling the situation, I would give each family an opportunity to review all the information, see what they might like to take out, and then try to get some impartial people to see if it should be taken out or not. That's the way I would handle it. But Americans are entitled to know. I mean, as the years have gone by since the John Kennedy assassination, the conspiracy theories have grown by leaps and bounds. There were no conspiracy theories for the first year and a half after John Kennedy was assassinated. But because people saw that there was some money to be made in it, they started coming up with a whole different, a lot of different conspiracy theories. Now, I don't happen to believe any of them, but I don't know,
Now, we were older. You were older at the time. How old were you about when?
26.
26. I was only 9 years old, but it's true. It did take a few years after the assassination for these conspiracy theories to blossom. But the reason for that was we were just learning about little facts, like Jack Ruby was connected to the mob. He was a nightclub owner with ties to the mob in Florida and Dallas and in Chicago. And he just walks into and he's friends with the Dallas police, who you later learned that LBJ and JFK never really got along very well. And that JFK's trip to Dallas was to help reinforce LBJ and the relationship between the two of them. And they went in there knowing that people didn't like him in Dallas. And yet the police did nothing, in my opinion. They didn't do enough to protect him. So there's a lot. And Jack Ruby walked right into the police station. He knew all the police officers. And
I saw it happen.
When he shot Lee Harvey Oswald, right on TV. So there's so much issues like that. And that was one of maybe 1,000, because there's so many more that have never been addressed, that were never addressed by the Warren Commission. And why keep all these documents a secret 61 years later? 80% of all the people that were alive when JFK was shot are probably not here anymore.
Right. Absolutely.
So why not release it unless you're trying to hide something? And that's always been the fuel that drives the conspiracies.
You were talking about 80% of the people from then are gone. Who's around that still wants to hide something?
No, that's the families and the political movements. There's so many things about J. Edgar Hoover hated the Kennedys. He hated Martin Luther King. What did he do? Did he protect the president enough? But he hated the guy so much. I can't believe that he really did enough to protect him. LBJ really had the Kennedys had a disdain for LBJ when you read the history books, and they really disliked him, and they treated him like he was a nobody of insignificance. That had to really kind of hurt him. And then he had all these, the mob was upset because they believed they stole the election for Kennedy. But as you pointed out, Kennedy won the election from stolen votes in Dallas, right?
In Texas, not only in
Texas. But they did feel, the perception was they stole the election in Chicago. Yes. And when he became president and put his brother up as attorney general to target the mob, they felt betrayed and angry with JFK. So there was those theories about who wanted Kennedy gone. Was it some goofball named Oswald, some idiot, who just, when you look at him, he was a goof and he did all this to satisfy so many people? It doesn't make sense.
The one question I really have, and I've always had it, is that was Lee Harvey Oswald tied up with the CIA? It seemed like he moved very easily between various communist countries. And to me, he had to be working for those communist countries, or he had to be working for the CIA, and they helped, expedite his movement between a number of the communist countries in Europe and Cuba. I'd really like to know more about his background.
Yeah, and I think that a lot we don't know what are in these other documents, but obviously they got to be important if they're not going to release them. Because if they weren't important, you'd release them, right? So all these final documents, this is the cream of the crop, probably the most important documents of just the JFK investigation. But Trump also released everything from the RFK investigation and the Martin Luther King investigation, which I don't think are as controversial. But the JFK investigation, two movies were made. There was so much public concern about the Warren Commission's conclusion that in 1973, Burt Lancaster starred in a movie called Executive Action, which is about the killing of JFK. And the next year, Warren Beatty starred in a big movie called The Parallax View, which was about how a conspiratorial effort could easily assassinate a major politician like a president or a senator. So those movies were so popular because people believed it was possible. And they believed it was possible because in the 10 years since Kennedy's assassination in the late 60s and early 70s, they didn't feel that they got the answers to what really happened. So it's not just a conspiracy, it was an attitude that was created, by the way this whole thing was handled.
Well,
And
we'll soon find out what's in those documents.
I'm looking forward
We'll
to
see
it.
how interesting.
I just wrote a column
In
about
light
it.
of the fact that all three,
Go ahead.
in light of the fact that all three of them were quite involved with women other than their wives, I am sure people will really be looking forward to reading that part of the documents.
Well, and that's a reference, obviously, to J. Edgar Hoover keeping these files on JFK and his girlfriends, Robert F. Kennedy and his girlfriends, and Martin Luther King and his girlfriends, because he did see King as a real threat. This is Hoover to America. So and how much of that is true, though, we don't know. But those files were kept. Rumors, reports, every little notation, he would keep it. And I've read several books about all the stuff that he did. And you're right. If those papers should get out so we could find out what the truth is too, because in my book, I really believe that the fear of embarrassment is overcome by the need to know the truth. Whatever the truth is, we should know it. However however we get there, we get there. So, but I wrote about the JFK and Trump papers that are being released in my column this week at Hanania.com. If anybody wants to follow up. But one last thing, if I might, Bill, I think we've seen a transition of the Kennedy aura from when JFK was the beloved president, even RFK, and even a little bit Ted Kennedy. He had the aura of the Kennedy family. Not as much charisma, but he was there. Ever since, and then the death of John F. K., JFK Jr. in that plane crash. Since then, the remaining Kennedys are horrible, nobody cares, politically partisan people. And one of the grandsons tweeted something this week attacking Trump, for releasing those documents. And to me, that's just abhorrent that he would not want to see those documents released. And the way they attacked Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who at one time was running for president but now is aligned with Trump, it's marginalized the family to me. They're no longer significant. They're not the same Kennedys that they were in the 60s that you and I knew.
Oh, that's very, very true. Once upon a time, if you went into any Irish Catholic home in this country and in Ireland, there was a picture of Jesus Christ and there was a picture of John F. Kennedy right alongside of it. That's the reference that people had for him.
Yes. That's not today, though. The Kennedys are not nearly what they were 60 years ago. So, all right, Bill, what else?
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, it's been very interesting, wide-ranging conversations, as it usually is on our show, Ray. And I'll look forward to what we can get into next week.
All right, I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski.
And we will see you next week here on Two Guys on Politics. Thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.